The Butterfly Effect is a science fiction thriller about a 7-year-old that starts having blackouts that seem to be triggered by moments of extreme trauma and distress. He's instructed to start writing in journals, hopefully to help with his sporadic memory loss, and this goes on until he's 13 and his mom decides to uproot him from the toxic environment he had been brought up in, separating him from his childhood friends that have had a consistent link to his breakdowns. Now as a college student, Evan discovers that when he reads from his childhood journals, he's able to re-experience these moments that were previously shrouded by his blackouts. But now he's fully conscious with the knowledge and mindset of his adult self. But he's not just viewing the past, he's changing it. Every time he jumps back in time and changes key moments in his life, he wakes up back in the present, seemingly overloaded with a lifetime of altered memories, and finding that he has successfully altered the past. Now Evan is obsessed with healing the scars of his loved ones, trying to create a future where everyone is healthy and happy, but something always seems to go wrong. And every time he alters the past, his present self suffers brain damage. It seems that if he keeps playing God, he could wind up killing himself. I saw The Butterfly Effect when I was 12, and it quickly became one of my favorite movies. It's a high-concept time travel movie, and I found its dark and twisted storytelling to be very appealing. To say that this movie is unpleasant would be the understatement of the year. This movie centers around some extremely vile characters, and just about everything that happens in the movie is horrible. Much of it revolving around child abuse, violence, rape, murder, suicide. Evan had a rough upbringing, and The Butterfly Effect is practically oozing with depressing circumstances and tragedy. As I've gotten older, I find this movie less and less appealing each time I watch it. I'm not personally bothered or upset by the events in the movie. I like dark movies, but it started leaving a bad taste in my mouth. The movie is pretty tactless about how it handles these characters and moments. It seems like the director is trying to make this movie as edgy as possible. There's never a wasted opportunity to give it a hard R rating. The main problem I have with this movie is its tone. The character drama is watered down by the non-stop parade of horrible incidents that happen. Many characters in this movie are absurd and frustrating. And this movie throws so much negative shit at you that you really won't feel sympathetic towards anyone. You'll just feel numb, especially since there's so little time to breathe with the movie wanting to be quick-paced and exciting. Fortunately, this movie does have a lot good going for it, and one of those things is the downright terrific score. The music is hauntingly beautiful. Most of the emotion you'll feel during the movie is probably going to be triggered by the music itself. It's fantastic. I'd say the music heavily complements the movie, but really, I feel the music often carries the movie. It's a shame, too, because The Butterfly Effect has an outstanding premise, and it really could have turned out excellent. But it feels like they called it a day after finishing the rough draft, because the script itself is rough to say the least. The first quarter of the story is Evan at age 7 and then 13, and with no supernatural elements yet, all you do know is that something is terribly wrong. The mystery and the horror of what is happening with Evan is very intriguing, and apart from a bunch of it just feeling icky and at times a bit stupid, it's all still pretty good. But things do fall apart when Evan starts time traveling. When he attempts to fix the past, he always fumbles it and accidentally messes up the future. It's to be expected, it's kind of the whole premise of the movie, but it relies on Evan being an idiot to make all of it work. The movie insists on this idea that fate cannot be changed, that you can't play God. But this pretty intelligent guy who excels in college makes the most idiotic and impulsive decisions when it comes to altering the past. Evan can time travel. He has all the time in the world. But it never seems like he has any idea what he's doing. Half the time, he's literally just making things worse. The movie would have worked a lot better if you weren't rolling your eyes every time he jumps into a flashback. Evan being a royal fuck-up isn't what derails the movie, though. The script needs him to make mistakes. But the script also relies on half-baked ideas and inconsistent logic. An aspect they play around with, but never really explore, is this idea that he might gain the memories of his altered past. Except you don't really know how it works because he's a fish out of water whenever he wakes up with a nosebleed. It's as if he didn't retain anything. But then there are these moments where his alter ego slips out. In one moment, he's hazing a student, and his douchey past self slips out. In this timeline, he's married to Kaylee, and despite abandoning her and totally forgetting about her in the past, now he says that she's the only thing that's ever mattered to him, and that he loves her more than anything. His car gets vandalized, and he's really upset about it. Like, really upset. And since he's recently woken up in this new reality, I just don't get why. Unless his brain is possibly going haywire because of his reality splitting, it's hard to say. They don't really get into it. I suspect that I'm putting more thought into it than they did. There's a scene where he's in prison, and he needs to perform a miracle to gain someone's trust. He jumps back to school and draws this picture of him stabbing these inmates that have been bothering him, and then he impales his hands, creating a scar and proving his power. In the original past, he had drawn this picture, and it concerned his mom and his teacher. Why does the picture exist if Evan had never drawn it? Or stabbed his hands for that matter? This isn't a straight timeline where his future self is filling in the blackouts with what really happened. These blackouts are simply portals for him to jump through. So if the picture exists, the scars should exist. Also, if this is the butterfly effect we're talking about, then a 7-year-old purposely stabbing himself in a full classroom should have altered his future. The movie puts about as much thought into this stuff as Evan does, which is not a whole lot because it's much more focused on the big picture. Having a fun, exciting, non-stop thrill ride with things being tossed at you every other scene. Ultimately, we find out that Evan is dying and that he's being kept in a mental institution. But he needs to go back one more time to set everything right. And he comes to the conclusion that he's the constant that needs to change. He needs to let everyone go. He needs to be out of the picture so that everyone else can have a happy ending. So, in the director's cut, he goes back in time and kills himself in the womb. So this is stupid, but the movie does attempt to earn this ending. Evan learns from his mom that she had a series of stillborn babies, and that Evan was a miracle. So now you're telling me that every single one of her offspring has had this gift, and each of these people, all having radically different lives and circumstances, have all decided to commit suicide by traveling back in time into their mother's body and choking themselves on the cord? What? New Line Cinema didn't like that ending. I guess an unborn baby offing itself was just one step too far. In a movie where they abuse and sexually assault children. In a movie where they burn a dog alive and they literally blow up a baby. In a movie that is filled to the brim with sick and terrible things. That was too much. So, in the theatrical cut, he cuts ties with his friends, and they go their own way, and everyone is happy. A happy ending doesn't work for a movie that is this negative. But it works a hell of a lot better than an ending where an unborn baby commits suicide. Repeatedly. Anyway, I'm pretty conflicted how I feel about the whole thing. Growing up, I loved this movie, but now it's more of a guilty pleasure. I still like it. The premise is great, the music is great, the performances are mostly fine. It's a pretty unique idea, and it's certainly entertaining. And it's such a letdown because there's so much potential with this. I really want them to make a version of the butterfly effect that nails the premise and the execution.